That moment where you're like, this isn't what I desire, but I feel stuck and I don't know what to do to take a step to figure out what next. Today, we're talking about what it actually means to be faithful and unfinished and why that might be exactly where you're meant to be. If you've ever felt like you love God but still feel stuck, behind, or unsure why things haven't quote unquote clicked yet, this episode is for you. I've spent the last few years walking through healing, loss, rebuilding, and quiet seasons where nothing looked impressive, but everything was changing. So I don't know about you, but most of my life I've kind of had this feeling like I have to get to XYZ because then I'm going to feel fulfilled. I'm going to feel happy. I'm going to feel secure. I'm going to feel confident, whatever those things are. And I think we've been told so much in our lives that that's what life has to look like. And for me personally, the last several years in restarting life all over again, I often felt like, what am I actually doing? And this is coming from somebody who I have not arrived, which is why I've called this podcast The Becoming, because I truly believe that we will all be becoming throughout our life. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly becoming different versions of ourselves. We're constantly growing and tapping into what it is that we want in this season of our life. But I think our society has put this pressure, especially on women, that we have to have it all figured out, that it's supposed to look a certain way, that we have to get to this place of arrival. And I finally just decided in this like rebuilding stage of I got to ditch what everybody else expects and I've got to focus on where do I even want to go? What do I want life to look like? What do I want my daily life to look like? Do I want to be stressed out and busy all the time? No. No, thank you. But like, what is it that I want out of life? Who do I want to be? What do I want to be like? How do I want to treat people? How do I want to treat myself? What do I want to teach my daughter when it comes to growing up and becoming all that she is meant to be as well? And to be honest, I really think that when I had my daughter, it was part of the reason why I had to make some really difficult decisions because I didn't like who I was becoming. And that was a really hard thing to admit because there were so many pieces that were working really well and I had really cool opportunities and I was in a relationship but things just weren't what I desired. If I really sat and thought about it, about what were my heart's desires and what did I want out of life. And I've talked to so many women where we have this kind of like aha moment of like, ooh, this is not what I intended for my life, but like, what do I do to make a change? How do I change my circumstances, my situation, whatever it might be? And it can affect every area of your life. It doesn't have to just be relationships. It can be career. It can be your lifestyle. It can be your friendships. It can be just how you operate in day to day. For me, I used to work like 18-hour days and like that wasn't enjoying life. And I was hardly sleeping. My health was deteriorating because of it. And it really impacted me in a lot of ways. And I think when we can pause and take that reflection of, oh, I don't like who I'm becoming. So what do I need to do to shift it? And I think that that's where that's probably the scariest part of the journey is that like that moment where you're like, this isn't what I desire, but I feel stuck and I don't know what to do to take a step to figure out what next. And I think oftentimes too, we see especially on social media, we see everybody's highlight reels. We see people doing this. We see people doing that. We see people accomplishing things. And I think there's the comparison to other people and what they're doing and what they're showing. But I also think there's comparisons to previous versions of ourselves and previous things that we may have done in previous seasons. And even in launching a podcast, this is something new for me. This is something that I've had on my heart for a really, really long time. But I've been known as a plus size personal trainer, former Miss Plus Canada, plus size model. Everything was around my body and everything was around embracing my body and helping women do the same thing. But for me, the shift really came when I realized that I wasn't happy with where life was at that time. And now I had a daughter that I had to show how to live a life that we desire and one where we feel fulfilled, happy, joyful, peaceful, and operating in the fruits of the spirit in our everyday life. Love, joy, peace, patience, like all of those things and how important it is. And if I wasn't doing that, how was I going to show her how to do that? And I think that for me was like the biggest click. And for you, you might have another reason. Your reason for maybe listening to this podcast of, okay, I'm exploring. I'm sitting back and recognizing, okay, something's off and I'm not totally settled or happy with where I am or who I'm becoming. And so I know that change is necessary, but like I don't even know where to start. And I will say that before change happens and before decisions are made and you start moving forward in next steps, there is that period of time where you just kind of sit back and reflect. You kind of pull back and figure out, okay, what's working. And then you start to notice how things make you feel. And you notice the things that make you feel really good, but then you also really notice the things that make you feel really, "Ugh." And we want more of yay and less of nay. And so it can often be really subtle when we're in this discovery phase of who am I becoming and am I happy about it? And here's the truth. If you're not happy about it, regardless of your age, you can make a change. You just have to decide to. And then the next parts are literally just taking one step at a time. And I think that again, with that comparison piece, we see people take so many steps. See people take leaps and bounds, but we don't see the behind work when it comes to making these decisions and changes that have to be made. So sometimes it's a mindset shift that happens. For me, that's really what it was. I kind of made this decision and then I started operating slightly differently so that I could notice where things were just like there was too much friction. And I was like, yeah, no, this is not a thing. And then from there, I started to take steps differently and started to notice, okay, if I do this, this is a good thing. If I do this is a bad thing. And so you just start learning as you go. And I think again, this whole becoming process is not coming from somebody who has it all figured out. And I don't know if I'll ever have it all figured out, but my hope is to be able to share with you vulnerably the things that I've had to navigate and walk through and show you that it is possible to, one, recognize that you need to change, and then two, figure out, okay, what are some of the steps that I can take to help navigate that change and without going extreme. So you don't have to like all of a sudden fix everything in your life. If I could make one recommendation when it comes to making change in your life is to focus on the small habits that you have in your everyday life. Focus on the things that make you feel good. Focus on the things that make you feel empowered. Focus on the things that make you feel strong, as opposed to focusing on, oh, that doesn't make me feel good. Start doing more of the things that you know make you feel good. So for me, there are several pieces to that. I have talked about wellness for years, obviously as a personal trainer for 7 years, and working with women and understanding how women work and how change happens. And it all starts in here. One, you have to get your mind right. You have to get your mind into a place of wholeness and healthiness and respecting yourself. And so whether that's affirmations and re-recording the negative tape that plays in your head, whether that's journaling and get whatever you're feeling on the inside out, I think that's often one of the biggest steps. It's admitting to ourselves, like, this isn't working and I don't like how I feel right now, so I need to do something about it. And from there, it's then, okay, then how is my heart? What's nourishing my heart and what's taking away from my heart feeling nourished? It's also the daily habits in taking care of yourself. So working out is something for me that's a really big part of my life. I work out consistently. I walk almost every day. I strength train. I try and do at least 3 times a week. I try and get other ways of moving my body in because I feel better when I do. I feel stronger. I have better mental health. My sleep is better. My emotions are more regulated, all of those pieces. And it's a really important piece. But again, it doesn't have to be extreme. If you're doing nothing, start with something. So for example, when I started walking after I had my daughter, I had a C-section. So recovery was really, really rough. I also had a torn hamstring I didn't know about where my hamstrings ripped off my butt bone. I'm not joking. And so I didn't know until she was 2. And I couldn't explain why I was still in so much pain and could hardly move. But that was the reason. And so when I started walking, I just started doing 20 minutes a day. I was like, if I can do 20 minutes, I can build on it. And now I walk 5 kilometers before I start work in the morning. And I love it. I feel good. I have more mobility. I have more strength. And I start my day off feeling really clear-headed and clear-minded. But I didn't start with that, right? So again, wherever you are, finding ways to find daily habits to help you. Other things in terms of taking care of yourself. Getting dressed, doing your hair and makeup. Again, doesn't have to be extreme. If you like, I can notice on days where I'm like, oh, I'm just really not feeling myself. I can just go brush my hair, leave it down, put a little bit of makeup on, sometimes just even mascara and lip gloss, and that's it. And I'm good. And I just feel a little bit better. And then at least an outfit. I might still wear leggings because girl, I still like to be comfortable. Let's be honest. I'm wearing leggings right now with a fancy satin shirt. Okay. That's the truth. But just finding ways to like make yourself physically feel good. And there's so many ways to do that. And it's finding what works for you, right? And then I think the biggest one that I ignored for so long and wasn't consistent with was my faith. And in all honesty, I've been a content creator for 12 years. And it's only been in the last year that I've actually started sharing more openly about my faith. And most of that, there's two reasons really, was I was afraid of what people thought. So I grew up as a Christian. And so I grew up as a pastor's kid. My faith was a very big part of my life from a very young age. I went on a missions trip when I was 16. And around that age is when my faith became really my own after being grounded for half of high school. And so for me, my faith grounded me a lot, but I was too afraid to talk about my faith because of what I thought people would think. And Christians have had a bad rap. Like, I can't front that. And I've gone through my own pain when it comes to the church as well. And so I felt really scared. I didn't want to speak up. So I just kind of kept my mouth shut. But then that was doing a disservice. And I feel like people could tell I was not fully being authentic me. You might have seen me show up being able to be on a photo shoot and be confident in my body and all the things, but there was still something that was just not quite there because I was not owning all of who I was and who I was becoming. The other piece for me was the fact that I was living a lifestyle that I didn't agree with. I was living with my partner, which is not something that faith-wise I had ever wanted to do. I really believed in marriage, and having been divorced before I was 30 and getting out of an abusive marriage, and we'll talk about that some other day, I settled on things and I made decisions, and I felt shame for talking about my faith when I wasn't living a lifestyle that I fully agree with. Guys, I was not planning to talk about this. This feels very vulnerable, but like, that's what this is about. This is about having these conversations that are not scripted, that I want you to know that like wherever you are, you're not alone in this journey. And there are so many feelings that go on in our everyday life, and you don't have to feel alone and you don't have to feel shame. And those are the two main reasons I haven't even talked about my faith until like officially. Now, a faith-based podcast for women who are on their journey to becoming all of who they desire to be, who God has designed them to be, being faithful in the messy seasons and yet still unfinished, and that is okay. Like, it's more than okay. So here we are having this conversation now because I decided I was done being somebody that I didn't want to be. And I decided that I was going to stop becoming a person, a woman that I didn't want to be and that I didn't want my daughter to see a reflection of. And I'm going to get emotional. My decision to restart my life at 40 was because of her. She's my greatest little blessing and my little mini me, and I can't imagine not having her in my life. I can see our digital frame behind my monitor with all the photos of her and the life we've created, and I love her so dearly. And I showed her a video this morning of a photo shoot I just recently did, and she said, "Mommy, I want to be just like you." And it took everything within me not to just break down. But that's what my hope was, that she would be able to say, "I want to be like my mom," and that I would be proud of her to say that, because I'm proud of my mom and all I've watched her go through and seeing how strong she was. And she's been such an amazing example of me watching a woman become who she desires to be, who God has called her to be, and who had to be really strong. I've watched her rebuild her life as well. And so I also want the cycle to stop. I don't want the women in our family to have to keep rebuilding, to keep settling and rebuilding. And so, again, this is way more than just a podcast. You are worth more than, as the Bible says, you're worth more than rubies. Your value is infinite. And when you realize that and sit with that and carry that, how you move in life completely changes, and you become who you were designed to be. So one thing I also want to talk about is it being okay to be unfinished. I've been very open and honest about what life has been like in the last couple of years for me. A lot has been in secret or in hiding, really, because it's hard to decide what to share about when you're still raw from feeling hurt and not healed yet. So I had to be careful and tender with my own heart in how much I shared and in what capacity. But I've been very honest that I, just before I turned 40, moved into my mom's 2 hours out of the city, took my daughter with me, and lived in my mom's basement for 6 months. I thought I was going to be there longer, and that's a whole nother story. But for me, that was worst case scenario, was being single again at 39, being on my own with my daughter. Her dad is in her life and very involved in her life, but with me the majority of the time. And living that far out of the city was me. And so it was a lot. I was also running a business and trying to figure things out while also healing and feeling really broken and not really having an income and being stressed like crazy and having to like focus on healing body, soul, and spirit. And so during that time as well, I was also being sued. We had tried to purchase a house when my daughter was about 1, and our lender pulled out 2 weeks before closing. And the homeowner 6 months later let us know that I was being sued, and I was also being cross-sued, which was very stressful to say the least. I was very traumatically served at my mother's house twice, and with my daughter in the next room, which was very stressful. And I ended up getting a lawyer eventually, and he suggested we try and settle. So he tried to have a conversation with the lady about settling, that if we had to go to court, I would likely have to claim bankruptcy. And so she said, have her claim bankruptcy now. And I think she thought I was bluffing about my situation, that I was drowning in debt, was trying to figure life out. I didn't have an income. I didn't have a job, none of it. And so I ended up claiming bankruptcy at the end of last year. And so this is all coming from a woman who is still in the unfinished, but it's okay. And I've learned how to be faithful. I've learned how to have joy. I've learned how to have peace in the midst of the storm. And that's probably the hardest part, is figuring out, how is it that we can be faithful? How do we stay committed to our faith? How do we trust God when all the shoes have dropped? So for me, my shoes dropping, because that was always my fear when the shoe was going to drop, was being single, moving in with my mom, and then having to claim bankruptcy. Those were like my big ones. And yet here I am, a year out from the bankruptcy. I still have 9 months left, but 8 months left actually. And I have a really great job that I'm doing really well at. I'm actually filming on our product right now, Riverside. I'm a client success manager. I get to work from home remotely, which works so well for my schedule having Brooklyn. I get to work out in the morning before she goes, or after she goes to school. I work out on my lunch, so I'm able to still take care of myself. When she goes to bed at 7, I rest or I work. I took all of last year off as a rest, my year of Jubilee. And I think that's the other part, is like acknowledging that you don't have to just like do in order to become. And my greatest becoming actually came from taking a year off and taking a beat, taking a rest and not taking on anything new. I literally just stopped doing business stuff. I made content that was fun and enjoyable, but I didn't focus on a strategy. I wasn't taking on new initiatives. I wasn't reaching out to brands for work, nothing. I just focused on working full time and being a mom. And as soon as Brooklyn would go to bed at 7, oftentimes I'd be asleep by 8 because I just needed rest and my nervous system needed to calm down. So just a reminder that whatever season you're in, it's really just taking a seat and saying, okay, what do I actually need right now? What is going to serve me? And rest might be the thing you need. And if we keep just pushing, you're not going to be able to become all of who you were designed to be, all of who you desire to be, live the life you desire to live. And I think it's really important to remember that hustle culture, the boss babe energy, not believe me, I had bought into it, hook, line, sinker. It's not going to satisfy. What is going to satisfy is connecting with your creator, realizing how much he loves you, how much he cares for you, and that you can trust him. And I know that trust is a scary word, believe me, from the girl who has chosen poorly when it comes to relationships. Trust is hard. I've been betrayed by more than just romantic relationships. I've been betrayed by other relationships with leadership, relationships with friendships. There has been a lot of mistrust, and it is hard to trust again. But here's what I've learned in this being still period, is that taking that rest allows you to calm down. It also allows you to gain some perspective to see what's really important. Also assess, what do you actually desire for your life? What is it that you want? And start figuring out one step at a time what it would look like to start living the life that you want. And if I'm really honest, my word for 2025 was Jubilee, which is resting the land for future harvest. It's a biblical term. And they would rest the land from any crops in order to rest it for future harvest. And I thought that I was going to be resting actually for 2 years. I thought I was going to be resting in 2025 and 2026. And so I was okay with that. I had accepted it. And as somebody who has been go, I've worked multiple jobs all my life. Literally in high school, I was working full-time hours between being a bookkeeper for my dad's business, working at Rona as a cashier, and in high school my last semester. That's how it started. So I was 18? That's all I knew. Okay. I worked 2 and 3 jobs even through college. That's all I knew. And so running a business just felt natural. That's what my dad did. I saw him being an entrepreneur. I loved it. I thrived off of it. I loved strategy. So for me to take a year off and not commit to anything new was hard. So when I say making decisions on becoming her and who you want to be, They're not easy decisions, but I can tell you they are worth it. So here's what I didn't expect in rest. Again, remembering that I thought that I was going to be resting for 2 years, not just one. Something that I'm really used to doing is strategizing. I can come up with a plan and I can give you a pretty little plan to go execute. But God had been working with me on him being in the driver's seat and not me. And guys, I know that one is also really hard, but it's really cool when you learn how to do it. And so in about November, I started getting the itch of like, okay, maybe I need to be doing this, 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 and this. And all I heard God say, no, be still. And this is what he said to me. He said, allow me to open the doors for you. You don't have to go knocking on all of them. There's a time and a place for knocking on doors, 100%. In this case, I know what God was trying to teach me. I mean, I still may learn some other things from it as well. So I was like, okay, I left it alone. Out of nowhere, a friend of mine contacted me who was visiting. She had moved to Ecuador, sold her studio. I had worked with this photographer for years. Her and I had kept in touch when she had moved with her girls. And she was like, hey, I'm visiting and I'm actually opening my studio back up. Do you want to come shoot with me? And I was like, oh my gosh, because for me, the first piece in establishing a brand was I needed new updated photos. I hadn't done a brand shoot in a couple of years. I've changed a lot emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I knew that I had to embody who I was now. And I was like, okay, there's the first store. A couple days later, something else happened at work. I was invited to be part of a group focusing on branding. I was like, this is interesting. And so I was also coming up to my birthday, which is December 15th. And I felt God say, okay, you can get ready for this photo shoot, but that is it. No other planning, nothing else. And I was like, okay. So I started working on what the name of the podcast would be. So The Becoming, Faithful and Unfinished. And so I got that, a synopsis of what the podcast would be about. And then I also got the visuals for what I wanted for the photo shoot. And everything was to be soft, feminine, and pink. And if you know me, dark purple used to be my brand color. Purple is my favorite color. And I don't know if people have ever seen me in anything light colored or in pink. And now my house is blown up as pink. So this is my living room. We have all pink accessories. I've done my bedroom pink. Like, it's out of control. But that was the vision. The photos, the photographer nailed my vision 100%. It was amazing. Cool. So here I am. I'm having these photos. I have no idea, like, really what the next step is. And I wasn't allowed to touch anything else in 2025. And so then 2026 is rolling around. I'm trying to figure out what my word is for this year. And my word smacks me in my face, which is cultivate. So cultivating what I had been working through in 2025, which is still cultivating rest, cultivating who I'm becoming. It just all started to come together. And then I got the go ahead that, okay, it's time to start the podcast. I was him and hawing about whether I should build a website or not, because that's what I'm used to doing. And I ended up having a bill saved for a month. I didn't have to pay a bill. And I was like, I could afford to buy the website. So I had decided, okay, this is the night that I'm going to build the website. It was a Friday night. I'm going to start when Brooklyn goes to bed. I still didn't have my photos back. I had proofs, but I had no final edits. And I was like, okay, I'll just use the proofs for now. And when I get the edits, I'll replace them. Tell me why 15 minutes before Brooklyn went to bed, I've received my final proofs. I was like, okay, here it is. So I was able to build my website in 24 hours. Also attended a prayer board workshop that weekend, which was phenomenal. And God really showed up then. And so many different things were a confirmation of I was on the right path and I wasn't having to push hardcore for it. The other thing that was really cool was on my birthday, I went to the spa with my best friend and she surprised me with another best friend of mine back at the hotel. We ordered in. I just wanted a super chill, restful birthday. Again, the vibe of 2025 going into 2026. And so one of the things we do for our birthdays is we give each other a blessing for the year and something we hope for them. And so Julie gave me her word, which was very similar to the word that I chose for my year. And then my other best friend actually gave me the word of the podcast that I had already figured out, but she had no idea that the podcast was in the works or what the name was. And I was like, okay, I'm on the right path, God. Thank you for all of these confirmations along the way to the becoming of the becoming. So I share all that to say that God is so much in the details and he uses everything. So I actually want to share a scripture verse with you today. This is my pretty Bible, guys. If you've never seen a Bible like this, it's amazing. So it's pretty, obviously. You can get it in multiple different versions. I have the New Living Translation, which I love. There's journaling space and there's also space to like color. So this is one of my favorite verses. She's clothed with strength and dignity and she laughs with it for the future. One of my tattoos as well. But the verse I want to share with you today. is Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. And so I know that I've just like breezed over parts of my story, and my hope in sharing very vulnerably and raw is that you will feel like you can show up raw, vulnerable, be honest with where things are at, and start reflecting and figuring out what is working for you, what is not, what needs to change. How do you become who you want to be? And then recognizing that God can take all the mess. God can take failed relationships, being a divorcee at 30, bankruptcy, having to start over again at 40, at 30 and at 40, all of those things. God could take all of that and turn it into something beautiful. And he can work all of those things together for your good. But here's the other piece. In my previous roles, in the previous content I created, so much of it was about me. And that was a hard thing for me to admit, that I had really become very self-centered, and some of it was really out of insecurity. And I had to recognize that this journey, yes, healing was important for me. Yes, healing was important to show Brooklyn what it looked like. But what was also really important was that everything that I do is to bring glory and honor to God. I don't share what I've done or the bad things that have happened for pity anymore. And that's something that I used to do because I didn't feel seen. I felt unloved. I felt like I didn't matter. I felt like who cared? And that is such a shift as well, that I don't share these things out of, oh, what was me? Have pity on me. I share because I'm coming through on the other side. And I've seen what God can do when we say, okay, here's my mess. Help. I don't even know what to do. And that's where I was like 2 years ago. 2 years ago to this day, I was preparing to move back to Toronto into this very apartment. I had found mold in my mom's house, and I ended up within a week of finding this apartment that was fully furnished, packed up my SUV with Brooklyn and moved into this apartment fully furnished. Because of the mold, I had to leave all of my belongings behind except anything that I could wash. I had to do 30 loads of laundry in 48 hours, put everything in vacuum seal bags, and move here into this apartment. I had no job. I paid for 3 months on a line of credit. I had to prove that I had $100,000 in available credit so that if I didn't get a job, I could still pay rent. I had no daycare for Brooklyn, no childcare, nothing. That was the walk of faith that I had to take after being in desperation, saying, God, please make a way where it seems like there is no way. And he did. And 2 years later, I'm still unfinished, and I'm more than okay with that because I'm still faithful. And I know that he's continuing to work things out for my good, just like he is for you. Honestly, when I say some of this stuff out loud, sometimes I'm like, this is unbelievable, because God, how did this happen? And I think a big piece of it is I decided to be obedient. Decided to stop living a way that I knew he didn't want for me. And I decided to start being obedient to the little things that I heard him ask of me or tell me or encourage me. And I just took one step at a time. Did I have any idea how I was going to figure out how I was going to pay for rent? To Toronto is not cheap. But I knew that God was going to figure out a way. And so we'll save the rest of that story for another day, but there was lots of that happened eventually. So I moved here February 1st of 2024. I had two jobs I had two jobs in 2024. But I started at Riverside in September of 2024. And it was such a good fit for me, being able to record my podcast here too. I get to help business clients with their content and how to use Riverside really well. And so now I know how to use Riverside really well. And so it's really cool to see how God took my yes to saying, I want to become all that you desire me to be. I want to become the woman that you've created me to be, the mother you've created me to be. And I want to encourage other women to do the same. So again, what this all taught me is that I just had to give God my yes and trust him with every single step and only focus on the next right step. What it means for you is it might just mean acknowledging, I want to become who I desire to be. I want to become all of who God created me to be. And that might be your very first step. You might have already made that decision. And now you're like, okay, I made the decision, but like, now what? And so start asking him, God, what is my next step? What's one step that I can take towards the direction that you have for me? What does it look like? What do I do? And really just trust that he's going to show you, reveal it to you in a way that's meaningful for you. So a few other things just to close up is I want to remind you that being faithful does not equate arrival. And so you can be faithful in the small things. And the Bible talks about being faithful in those small things so that you can be faithful with the more. When God can trust us with the small, he gives us the more, right? This is more for me. During this podcast, this feels scary. I have talked myself out of recording this episode today. I knew I had the time today, and I literally talked myself out of it. My best friend had to be like, Sarah, you got this. It's okay. Oh, I'm going to cry. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be faithful. You just have to give God your yes. Your becoming season is often in hidden places. Most people don't know the things that I've had to heal through, how I've had to heal through them, what I've had to walk through. My hope is to be able to share that a lot with you on practical things I did to help heal, what worked, what didn't, and finding the things that made me thrive. My hope is to help you thrive and sharing that, not only my story, but other women's stories of how they became who all they were to become as well. And the biggest thing I want you to remember, being unfinished does not mean that you are failing. Again, this whole idea that you have to look like this pretty package bowed up to be enough is a lie. We are constantly going to be evolving. We're constantly going to be growing into who we desire to be, who God has called us to be. And just because you are unfinished doesn't mean you are a failure. That's a really big one to let sink in. Also, a reminder that being unfinished doesn't mean you're behind. I think that for me, that was a really big one of like, okay, I'm going to take a year off and then what? I'm going to take a year off and then I'm going to be so far behind in terms of like the things I want to accomplish and the things that I desire for Brooklyn and I that like, then what? Like, what am I going to do taking a year off? And believe me, I tried to fight it for the first little while and then I finally surrendered. And it was in that surrender that I was like, oh, now I see why you wanted me to rest and why it was so essential. I think you also in this season, I had to do the same thing, is give yourself permission to not rush it. I didn't put a timeline on when I thought rest was going, it's not even be over because I still have to make sure rest is still incorporated into my life. So even in building this podcast and building all the pieces that go with it, I had to force myself not to work till midnight. I had to still maintain the balance and the habits that I had built to become who I am today and maintain them because I don't need to learn this lesson again. We don't need to learn the same lesson over again. We just don't need to. So try and not rush this process. Just embrace it, take one step at a time, and take the pressure off yourself. There's no end product. You are not a product. And I think another question to ask yourself is you may just be sitting here and saying, well, some of this I resonate with, some of I don't. Some of it's just taking stock of like, what is working for me in this season and what is not. And so even as I enter another season, I know that rest works really, really well for me. And so I'm taking that into this season as well because I know that I have to. There may be seasons down the road where I'll be able to extend my time a little bit more. Cool. But for now, I know that that's what I need in this season. So I will close this with 3 things that I want to leave you with. You're not late. It's not too late. You're not too old. It's not too late. Period. You are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. You are more than capable. You are not broken. And no season, including this season, is wasted. God literally uses everything. I've watched it time and time again in my own life, in other women's lives, and I see all the things that we learn in every season, good ones, bad ones, mediocre ones, how God uses it all to help women become who they are meant to be. And it's honestly the most beautiful thing. If you are in a room with somebody who you admire and you've seen part of their journey, ask them, tell me your story. Watch how the different things that they've done, whether it's been in their career, their relationships, how it's helped one become who they are now, but also do what they do now. It's honestly one of my favorite things to talk to women about when I meet new women because it's so cool to see, especially women who we quote unquote think have made it. They're also still becoming as well. But it's so cool to see all those things that come together. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this conversation sparked something in you to either make a decision, to help you feel something different, to set you in the right direction, whatever that might be for you with whatever season you're in and whatever life looks like right now. I would love if you subscribe to the podcast and that we could stay connected. In the next episode, I'm actually sitting down with somebody that I call my purpose mate. You've already heard me refer to her multiple times in this episode. Her name is Julianne, and she's walked this becoming process with me and has her own becoming process as well. And with her, we're going to be talking about how you don't have to be broken to start. I think that's what a misconception a lot of people have is that, well, I'm not broken. There's nothing really wrong with me. But sometimes we just know there's change that needs to be made, and it doesn't mean that you're broken. And I think, again, getting away from that mindset that we feel like we're broken is something that we need to ditch. So join me on the next episode with Julianne.